2023 LAFCO board meeting, and we had closed session. And Mr. Dillon, will you report out, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the issue of public employee appointment, title of the position being Commission Legal Counsel, the Commission by unanimous consensus motion without a formal motion and second, created a ad hoc committee to oversee the recruitment of new counsel. And the committee would advise staff on various steps and how to proceed. The members of the ad hoc committee are Chairperson Hart and Commissioners Geyer and Stark. What did I say? Hart?
Yeah, he's in the assembly.
Oh, I abbreviated your name, Hartman.
Okay.
So,
all right.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. So, turning to the next item of business, approval of the consent calendar. Does any board member want to pull any item on the consent calendar for further discussion? Seeing none. And Madam Clerk, is Supervisor Williams taking part in today's meeting? Okay, so we have to have all votes, then roll call vote. Thank you. So may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Kyriakou, second. And then would you call the roll?
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kyriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Patino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Clerk, would you read business item number 1 into the record, please?
Chair Hartman and members of the Commission, business item number 1 is approval of a professional service agreement with Davis Farr LLP for auditing services and annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, with 2 LAFCO options for fiscal terms 2023-24 and 2024-25, for a total amount to be paid for services rendered by consultant under the agreement not to exceed the sum of $12,500 for fiscal year 2023, $12,900 for fiscal year 2024, and $13,300 for fiscal year 2025.
Mr. Prater?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the item for a contract with Davis Farr to provide us some auditing services for 2023 through 2025. The Commission sought through an RFP process and had selected Davis Farr as the winning proposal. So now we are here to affirm the contract with them. Are there any questions? I'm happy to answer any.
Mr. Geyer?
Where are they located? Are they local or?
Carlsbad.
Oh, Carlsbad. Okay.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, may I have a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
All second.
And once again, would you call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer, Commissioner Kyriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Patino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Would you read business item number 2 into the record, please?
Chair Hartman and members of the Commission, business item number 2 is to consider a ballot vote for Santa Barbara County Employees Retirement System, SB SERS, General Third Member to the Board of Retirement.
Mr. Prater?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bit of an unusual, fun one here. The first time I've gone through one of these, but we, as LAFCO, are members of SB SERS, and so we get a vote on their journal member candidacy. There are 3 candidates running and have put their names in the hat for that position. Their statements have been provided in the packet for the Commission. And so the the commission is being asked to give the executive officer direction on which to select.
Commissioner Starr.
Yes, I am sorry, but my internet connection has failed again miserably. Would you be so kind as to read the names of the 3 nominees? I've got it from Mr. Guyer. It's not necessary.
Mr. Prater, just to warm us all up, would you read the names of the 3 and describe them briefly? We've never done anything quite like this, so I'm not quite sure how to proceed.
Yeah. First candidate is Julius Abanes, Deputy County Counsel. He's a 2008 graduate from University of California, Riverside, the bachelor's degree in biology. I'll abbreviate their analysis. They go on to explain their employment and their family. Second candidate is Lori Lee. She's the incumbent, Department of Social Services. She's been employed by the county for the past 19 years in the department, and she is the incumbent. Third candidate is Joel Flores. He's a cost analyst 2 within the General Services Department. And he obtained a CPA license in 2021 and has been working with the Auditor Controller's office since.
And once again, how long has the incumbent been in the role?
19 years.
For the county, but
Yeah,
SCSERS?
I'm not sure how long they've been the incumbent. It's not indicated in there,
Okay.
Laura. Is it in there? 2022?
2022.
Oh,
Thank
recent.
you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hartman. I'm thinking that this might have been something that was sent really to Director Prather as an individual, not necessarily as a board. Are we sure that this is a board vote for this, this item? Because this is, I just talked to our SB-SERS member who saw this and thought this was probably supposed to be something that,
Yeah, I
Sent
think
to us as
he may be
individual.
seeking direction for how he should cast a
Cast-
vote.
yeah,
or-
how- would
as
cast
your
it.
personal vote?
No.
As an SB-SERS member?
No, I think this is a member from LAFCO. LAFCO is the member, so.
That-
Otherwise, we would have had both employees receive this.
I received one.
That-
I
as
did
a-
too.
Right, so that's
That-
what I, as a county employee, and so that participates in the SB-SERS system.
Madam Chair, is this not a representative representing the active employees from the general employees of the county? So I don't know why LAFCO is considered a general employee of the county, but it seems to me that's what they're asking for, is an institutional vote on a general employee of the county, in which case I think it might be appropriate for us non-general employees of the county to defer to the wishes of the county people if they actually know any of these folks.
Chair Harper,
Yes.
I think that the way they vote is from different participants within it. Because I know when I was on the Goleta Cemetery District, they had a voting right.
I see.
Because
So,
they're a member of the retirement system.
Right.
Okay.
so Mr. Dillon, you're not sure either.
Yeah,
Mr. Prater.
Honestly, this is the first time I've seen this come across in all my times in all county pensions that I've been involved in. So if certainly the commission just would like to have me cast my vote for who I feel is appropriate, you can direct that as well, and I will take a private vote.
Mr. Dillon, what are you thinking about that?
Well, it's just that if we're wrong and it actually takes a vote of the commission and you don't vote, then Mr. Prater will.
Can we legally vote to delegate to Mr. Prater?
Was the ballot sent to LAFCO?
It was sent to LAFCO, Journal Mail.
Yeah, so I would think that they're asking us for an action as a participant in the pool. Yeah.
Mr. Stark?
I am actually seeing if we wanted to do that, I think we could either vote for one of the three people, or I think we probably could get away with delegating the vote to Mr. Prater should we want to do it. I don't think it's prohibited. There's nothing on it.
I'm a little less comfortable with the delegation, but
Well, somebody's got to represent LAFCO in this vote.
Well, I guess we all have to vote, and we have to distinguish. I know one of the candidates. I don't know two. I'm not sure exactly how to, other than based on the written description. So, would somebody like to nominate someone?
Then I would suggest that the chair be the representative of LAFCO in regard to this vote. Because she does represent the.
Is there public comment? I think we're still in discussion.
we have a troublemaker up there.
Yes, let's open for public comment.
Steve Lavanino, a member of SB STIR's executive board. Yeah, that's sent as a. I just spoke with our executive director, Greg Levin, just to verify because I walked in and I was like, "What are you guys voting on?" But it is it's sent personally to you, correct? And as a member of SB STIR's, you're able to vote on who you feel would best represent you. So it's not a LAFCO in general.
Thank you, Mr. Lavanino, for that very helpful comment.
So is it necessary to recognize that this wasn't properly on the agenda and wish Mr. Prater luck in his voting? Is that the correct?
I think it's just an informational item rather than an action item, and so we've had all the information, and we can turn now to. We're going to delay. Let's see, business item number 3. We're going to go to that, the Montecito and Water and Sanitary District. That's number 3, right? No, that's the information. Sorry.
Yes.
We're going to skip business item number 3 and go to informational item number 1.
Which is Los Olivos, CSD.
Are you coming back to the business?
We're going to come back. Yeah.
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, information item number 1 is to receive and file a status report from the Los Olivos CSD regarding wastewater treatment project.
Okay, just a briefer as our participant speakers are getting on Zoom. This was an approval of a 2-year time extension for the Los Olivos CSD that the commission granted. And with that came a condition to provide quarterly updates. And so their general manager and board president should be available, hopefully, on Zoom to provide that status update for the commission. So from there, I will turn it over to either Guy Savage or Tom Favre.
Good afternoon, Commission. This is Guy Savage with the Los Olivos Community Services District. Unfortunately, President Tom Favre is not able to join us today. He's traveling, and there's some confusion about travel plans, so it's just me today. Mr. Prater, am I to share my screen, or will you be doing the slides from that side?
Hold on, Guy. We'll get that PowerPoint up, and I will advance the slides for you.
I'm happy to do it from the side if that's easier.
I don't think our technology is.
Yeah, we're not sure
in that
that
fashion.
allows.
Fair enough.
Bear with us. We are pulling up that slideshow.
Well, while that's coming up, maybe I can get started with some of the preamble here. Here we are in October. This last update was issued. There it is. This last update was actually issued in July, and before the end of this month, I'll be putting together our next quarterly update that will come to Mr. Prater and LAFCO sometime early next month. So what I've got for you today is kind of a mix of what was in the status report, which is of course important information and I think helpful, but also a little bit of, well, what's happened since late July and early August, because there are a couple of months of time that have gone by. So if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so just a quick reminder, here's our district, the blue outline around the outer edge there, kind of that almost pie shaped sort of a district. The colors in this is a new slide. One of the things we looked at as we've been looking at some of the technical sides of things is we've been looking really closely at some of the lot sizes in the district. So those little red dots are small lots, less than a quarter acre. The green ones are less than a half acre, purple being less than 3/4 of an acre, and everything else is basically larger than 3/4 of an acre. So that's the district, about 376 parcels, and we have an annual budget of just over $225,000. Next slide, please. All right, so back in earlier this year, we held a couple of community workshops, one in particular where we asked the community, what is it that you want us to focus on? And you'll see in a couple of slides here why we went back to the community for this sort of a focus. But as it says here, the community really wanted us to focus, first of all, on costs, not just construction costs, but operations and maintenance costs. Next, they wanted to look at things like ownership, and I'll talk about why that's important here in just a couple of minutes. Of course, always concerned with a wastewater treatment plant where the plant will be located. A lot of concern about making sure we don't induce growth into the San Ynez Valley, and in particular Los Olivos. Always with the wastewater treatment plant, there's concerns about odors, and then last but most certainly not least was some concerns about view shed, meaning if you can see a big plant somewhere, going down Grand Avenue or Santa Barbara or something, we clearly didn't want that to happen. So this list was prioritized back by community members earlier this year, and of course all this was based on the underlying assumption that we would meet regulatory requirements and address our groundwater issues. Next slide, please. So this slide, I kind of like this slide just because it kind of puts into perspective where we're at and what we've been doing and some of the costs in particular. So 1974 at the very top, is when Los Olivos and other parts of the San Ynez Valley were designated special problems areas. Way down there toward the bottom, when things go from blue to green, is when the district was ultimately formed. But just prior to that, we saw some initial costing for what the wastewater treatment plant would look like. So 2013 was about $11 million, 2016, $21 million, and then in 2021, just 5 years later, we did a more detailed design, and I'll talk about what gravity/MBR means, and the estimate was well over twice that much, so almost at $48 million. Since then, we've put in 2 groundwater monitoring wells, and I'm going to talk about some groundwater monitoring well activity here in just a minute. And then, of course, at the very bottom there is today. So again, we've been we formed in 2018, so we've been working on this problem for a little over 5 years, and I think we're making some great progress. Next slide, please. So here's that $48 million number I mentioned a moment ago, and I think you guys have seen this before, but I wanted to bring it back to your attention. So gravity-fed collection, that's what most of us are used to when we think about sewers, right? You have a pipe that is run by gravity to collect all of the waste from homes. And then MBR treatment, membrane bioreactor treatment, those are prepackaged plants that tend to be fairly small in size and appropriate for a community of our size. So just looking at collection and treatment, we were looking at just under $48 million for what we call the north option, meaning something at the northern end of our district. And basically that was about $125,000 per parcel. In addition to that, we would have had to worry about, individual homeowners would have had to pay for laterals, meaning getting from their home to the centralized collection lines, removing their septic tanks. And then after wastewater is treated, you have what's known as effluent, meaning the remaining water, and we had to decide what was to be done with that. So that $48 million did not include any of that. Since then, the district did hold a workshop on effluent disposal, and the community is really focused on, would like to see us do as much as we can with reuse and or something called effluent chambers that put the effluent back into the groundwater table. Those solutions are about $1 million. So rounded up, it was about a $50 million package to be able to treat the waste for 376 parcels. Next slide, please. There we go. So that's sort of the history. And the question is, okay, so if you have this $125,000 number for each parcel, clearly lots of folks in the community didn't like that number, were scared away by that number, kind of said, look, go back to the drawing board a little bit and look at some of these collection and treatment technologies to see if there isn't a way to reduce the cost and get something that would ultimately result in a successful Prop 218 vote. So right now we're looking at a collection system that we have a technical subcommittee, much like the subcommittee that was the ad hoc committee that was formed a few minutes ago by your commission, that is looking at various collection at this point approaches. And last month, that hybrid, the technical committee brought forward a hybrid solution that includes some elements of gravity collection, some elements of effluent sewer, something called STEP, which basically is a technology where you keep some portion of the treatment at each individual parcel and send the effluent somewhere else to be treated. And then advanced onsite, which is much like just a high-tech sewer, high-tech septic tank that remains on each parcel. So we've been looking at those three technologies really closely as it relates to that first slide that showed lot sizes to see if there isn't some more effective, more efficient way to collect and treat our wastewater. The other thing we're really focused on, and our board will be, the Los Olivos Community Services District Board, that is, will be voting on an application with County EHS to install 3 additional monitoring wells. So ultimately what we're trying to do here is get to a cost and a project with the first bullet that will pass a 218 vote. And the second one is to gather more data as far as what's happening under our ground. So next slide, please. So this is that hybrid approach that the technical team put together and was reviewed by the board. And we're in negotiations currently with a contractor to be able to do a design, a 30% design. So we'll have kind of some apples to apples comparison between 100% gravity fed and MBR, like we saw in a couple slides ago, and this new approach. So what we did was we looked at the density of those homes and the size of the lots. And you can see we broke the community up into 8 zones. Zone 1 includes the commercial zone, which many of you know, plus many of those smaller lots as you kind of head south or down this slide in the blue there. That zone plus Zone 2, which is just to its right, were proposed by our technical committee to be gravity-fed collection. And the reason for that is we don't believe that effluent sewers can be put on those small lots. Basically, you need certain separation legally from septic tank collection and treatment to water lines. And in those small lots, you can't really do that. So then we looked at 3 other zones, zones 3, 4, and 5, to use that effluent sewer approach, which again, collects everything much like a septic tank, does some initial separation of solids and fluids, sends the fluids to centralized treatment to remove things like nitrates, which is why we ended up as a special problems area. Zone 6 was proposed for a limited time here, maybe 20 to 30 years at most, to be continue using septic tanks, but the advanced on-site versions that are much more technologically improved over kind of the historical septic tanks and allow those separations of solids and get things like nitrates out of it before we put that back into the groundwater. And then we recognize that there are 2 parcels in particular that are kind of unique. One is Maddie's Tavern, who you may know has their own solution on site. They're part of the district, and there's some requirements for them to join us when we get a sewer in place. So we recognize they need to be treated special a little bit. And then Los Olivos Elementary School, which is over there on the right-hand side of the slide, which we call Zone 8. There may be some unique opportunity with Los Olivos to be able to do some reuse or, as I mentioned earlier, some effluent disposal at the school. So we want to spend some time talking to Maddie's and to the school district to understand what their specific preferences are. Again, we're trying to get to sorry about that. We're trying to get to a successful Proposition 218. And so talking to them and making sure that they're on board with where we're headed is absolutely key. Next slide, please. So monitoring wells, as I mentioned, we have 2 monitoring wells. You can see them kind of across the top of this slide, those 2 little green dots, MW number 1 and whoops, it should say MW number 2 over on the right there. The numbers you see below MW1, 2.6/10. So we are allowed to have a maximum contaminant level, or MCL, of 10 as far as nitrates are concerned. The well on the left side there is 2.6. That's a mostly residential kind of an area. And the well on the right there, the one mislabeled, should have been an MW2, is 10 of 10. So that says that that well is measuring right at MCL, maximum contaminant level. And that well sits, as you can see, kind of in the northeast corner of our commercial district. Now, you may not know or may not recall that water flows basically in our community from north to south. So that basically created an understanding of what kind of water is coming into our district and what are those few properties right around those wells doing. So we've been working with County EHS and the Regional Water Quality Control Board to identify sites for additional wells. Ultimately, there isn't very good data currently as far as what's going on with our shallow groundwater table. So we're trying to put in 3 more wells to help us better understand what is going on underground. So you can see there a future well number 3 and number 4 and then number 5. Number 3 will help us with that hybrid design because it will help us understand whether or not advanced on-site systems will make sense in that zone 6 that I showed you a moment ago. Monitoring well 4 is really important because it's just south of the commercial core. So we'll have a really good understanding of what's being done to the shallow groundwater table by the commercial businesses, as well as, of course, those properties right around the well itself. And then monitoring well number 5 will tell us what's going on as water leaves the district. So we'll have a good understanding of how it's coming in, what's happening within the district, and how it's leaving. Our best guess is those wells will be installed, assuming we can get the grant that we need. That those wells will be installed early calendar next year, and we'll have some results for you by what'll be basically a March update. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we are working on establishing a contract with a technical consultant to review that hybrid design that I showed you a few minutes ago. Importantly for that one, we do have the potential for a grant from a local organization. They've essentially stepped forward and said they may be willing to fund the entire thing, which is kind of nice. That means that our little $225,000 a year budget won't be negatively impacted by that probably $70,000 to $75,000 contract to get a 30% design on the hybrid solution. That contract is estimated to take us about 128 days to complete. So again, about the time that I'll be able to report on the monitoring wells, that 30% will be completed. The other thing we are exploring is treatment with solvang. For those who've been watching our activities from the beginning, you would know that we, back in the early days, we did talk to solvang. At the time, it wasn't believed that connecting to solvang made sense. But we at least want to make sure we understand what treatment that solvang would cost and what it would look like, and understand the ramifications as we send effluent down Alamo Potato from Los Olivos to solvang. Once we get the technical evaluation, we want to do some more public workshops and more outreach. We do need to get to a final project description. We are looking at lots of grants. Of course, the environmental impact report has to be done, and then we can get to a benefit assessment vote. One more slide, please. So that kind of concludes my brief commentary. Happy to take questions from your commission at your pleasure, Chair. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Savage?
If I might just to be clear, when is the Prop 218 election scheduled for? Do you have a date for that?
We do not currently have a date for that. We were trying to target, and we hope, it's probably unrealistic, but we're still hopeful that we might be able to pull it off within this 2-year extension. Given the time it's taking us to get this next technical solution reviewed and designed, it's looking more and more doubtful, but there is no current schedule.
Thank you.
Mr. Savage, so you're really looking at three options: the gravity option, then the 8 zones, 3 treatments option, and then possibly looking to solving at least for price comparison. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know the operation and maintenance for each of those?
We have operations and maintenance costs for the gravity collection and MBR treatment. That's part of what this technical design will look at for the kind of the 8 zone 3 solution approach. They will tell us not just what's the cost for the capital cost for implementation, but also operations and maintenance costs.
Okay. One little town and so many options and so many zones, and it's amazingly complex. All right. Seeing no lights, is there any public comment on this item?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, and this is just informational, so we'll see you in another quarter, Mr. Savage?
Or sooner, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, going to informational item number 2.
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, information item number 2 is to receive and file a status report on Summerland and Carpinteria sanitary districts.
Mr. Prater?
Madam Chair, so the
our district is run by district management appointed by the board, and that is David Lewis, who is on Zoom as well, and myself, Mar Sousa. David is our operations manager, and I'm the administrative manager. I would like to give you a little bit of a short background information on why we entered into this study, and then David will tell you a little bit about the current study that's on the way. Summerland Sanitary is a very small district. We only have 480 connections, and our annual budget is $1.3 million. And then, as you probably know, we provide collection of raw wastewater treatment and disposal of the treated wastewater. And that goes through an outfall pipeline into the Pacific Ocean. Well, due to the heavy corrosion of the ocean pipeline that we discovered in 2021, we tried to do a rehabilitation project of the ocean pipeline, which unfortunately we were not successful in doing that. At that point, we are facing the replacement of the ocean pipeline, which is a very expensive project, as you can imagine. Since we're a small district, we have 5 employees, and we kind of feel that, through climate change, through personnel challenges, our board decided that we will need to kind of explore the option of maybe
it's due to be presented this month in October to the county, and it looks specifically at sending the wastewater from Summerland Sanitary District to the treatment plant at Carpinteria, with the end use being advanced water treatment and groundwater injection for indirect potable reuse. So we're waiting on the final. We have got some preliminary cost estimates. We're still waiting on the final report, but it's in the neighborhood of $16 to $20 million to send the wastewater to Carpinteria. There's a parallel study. The Montecito Water District has also expressed interest in a similar study, also, and has got a proposal from Corolla Engineering as well. So that's in the early stages, but it would be to send wastewater from Summerland to Montecito for treatment and ultimate reuse as well. So we've got a proposal we're looking at. There's, we, on a similar path, we went through a selection process for a consulting firm to do.
So I guess I don't see any lights here, so I guess we're satisfied with what you're sharing with us. It sounds like you've got a lot of studies underway and some big decisions ahead.
Well, thank you. I would add that the proposed study for the Montecito connection is a collaborative effort that will be between the Montecito Water District, Montecito Sanitary District, and Summerlin Sanitary District, and also the County of Santa Barbara. Sharing costs for that study is being discussed.
And before you sign off, let me just see if there's any public comment on this. Madam Clerk?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Madam Chair, I did have comments. I just wanted to encourage, I'm impressed that the work is being done. I do think that being able to serve the public in the most efficient way possible and really means better regional collaboration, and you're definitely looking at those hard questions, and really appreciate it. This is Doss Williams down in Santa Barbara.
All right.
Thank you.
On to the next item, Madam Clerk. Number 3.
Hartman and members of the commission, information item number 3, receive and file a status report on Montecito sanitary districts.
Okay, in very timely fashion, we have them, so we will hear from the efforts of the Montecito Water and Sanitation Districts, their efforts in evaluating either commission or some other options there to deal with getting at recycled water opportunities. There's been no final yet about what options they are leaning towards from either of the districts, but they did have a study conducted that's been attached as a draft form for your commission to look at, and I emphasize it's still draft, and the districts have not signed off on it yet, but we do have both the general manager from these districts available on Zoom. We'll lead with Nick Turn. Open your mic.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Good afternoon, commissioners. As Mike mentioned, Nick, study being made final is planning to also receive and file that at a meeting they have scheduled next week. A joint committee of the two districts have been meeting regularly over the last several years to discuss consolidation. As Mike had mentioned, while kind of ongoing discussions continue on consolidation, there has not yet been any decisions made. The committees are planning to discuss consolidation with their respective boards this month. At these meetings, the committees are and will be requesting that their respective boards decide whether to continue to pursue consolidation. So while we don't have any clear direction at this point, we expect to have some more clarity within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And I'd be glad to answer any questions on the study if you have them, or on the status of this effort.
Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Stark.
I just want to know, is it safe for us to assume that when the two districts get together to arrive at a consensus on consolidation, that we would promptly be given a status report and some estimation of when we could expect to see a petition of some sort? Is that a reasonable summary?
Yeah, I think we can do that if.
Montecito Water District Committee. Both committees have met several times over the last year. Both boards also commissioned the Raftelis report, which you have there for you in draft. This report will be scheduled to be considered for adoption by the Sanitary District Board at its Thursday, October 12 regular meeting. The board has held several meetings to discuss this report and will be considering an up or down vote for consolidation at that October 12 meeting. Pending your questions, that concludes my update.
Commissioner Williams, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Any public comment on this item?
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Well, thank you, Mr. Turner and Mr. Weibel. This is, I remember attending a LAFCO meeting statewide, and they were really encouraging more consolidation, but it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of sensitive negotiations, so congratulations for pursuing it. Madam Clerk, business item number 4. We'll go 4, then back to 3.
Chair Hartman and members of the commission, information item number 4 is to receive and file a status report on municipal service review program.
All right, Madam Chair and Commissioners, we do have a little bit of a PowerPoint show for you. Before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you to the General Manager for coming and giving the Commission an update on all of that status. Seems to be a lot going on out there in the world, a lot of potential activity for us, LAFCO, if all of that stuff comes through. Moving on, we are also embarking on our third municipal service review. This covers transportation-related services. And this is a status update of where we're at proceeding with that. And so the summary here is obviously the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act requires that LAFCOs do a service review and adoption of spheres of influence every 5 years. And so it's part of that service review and sphere update program. We have numerous outreach for the public in the agencies. We've extended that even beyond the August 28th date. We've extended it all the way to the tomorrow is the final date. And we have heard back from all 23 with the exception of 2 outstanding districts that need to be finally wrapped up for an admin draft review before we can release a public review draft. And as always, I always try to take the opportunity to remind the public and the agency staff that on our LAFCO website is a short community survey that you can take that relates to the services that we're talking about and whether or not, in their opinion, they feel they're adequate funding has been provided, and that the services are what are the expectant of the recipients of that. So on our schedule to the right, we are on schedule going through our admin draft and completing that. We hope to either at the end of this October month or shortly beginning in November, likely on our November 2nd date, meeting date, we will release the public review draft for a 30-day public review comment period. We will receive those comments, make any final changes as we did with the last year's service review, and then set a hearing date for December to adopt spheres for those agencies that are receiving those. Again, the recent activity is we're through an admin draft. All of the agencies have those in front of them. They are providing comments on those. We have 2 final agencies that need to provide final comments for us to wrap up our work at the LAFCO side of things. And then we need to draft chapters 1 and chapters 2 to be able to put a public review draft together. In that, we are anticipating some changes to some spheres of influence, and we'll walk through those. That is to add to 3 of the CSDs, Isla Vista CSD, Santa Ynez CSD, and the Santa Rita Hills CSD, as we look to adopt this service review plan and spheres of influence. All of the other agencies that are being evaluated will reconfirm their existing spheres. Either there are some that have spheres beyond their service boundary, but most of them are coterminous with their service boundary. There have been some study areas that had been considered. Thankfully, not nearly as many as last time. We had over 50 last time. This time we have, I think, 6 that we're studying, 6 different areas amongst the 23 agencies. And we'll walk through those. So Isla Vista CSD, initially we had 4 study areas for them. We've reduced that down to 3. One of the composting sites has been removed from study as part of this review. So we're looking at 3 study areas that they currently operate a composting service for, looking at amending their sphere so that they can continue that operation once they've seeken the latent power to do composting. And the service review documents what powers the district has and what powers they would need to seek, and composting is one, and solid waste service is one of those services that is currently latent for the district. But the recommendation would be an admirable program. We encourage them to continue that effort, and best way they can do that is to allow those sites to be part of their sphere of influence, and then they could seek some sort of out-of-agency service agreement so they can continue that type of service. Next was Santa Rita Hills CSD. There's a long standing issue with the MOA road and gaining access leading into the district. That's been going on for well over 30 years, that they've been wrestling with the property owners to try and gain access. Currently, the district does not have any roads built. They do not have access to those roads. And we're using the opportunity of the service review to study that MOA road and recommend that we can at least amend the sphere under this study. That would be one step in the process of allowing them to obtain future construction and maintenance of the road. And we'll go through some slides of locations of these. The city of Lompoc, in their request, asked that we reconsider the Bailey Avenue site. So we've included that as a study area and are concluding that it's not recommended to be added for all of the reasons that the application that went through with the commission back in February was not added. The city of Santa Maria has looked at an expansion area to the east of their site that includes 11 adjacent parcels. They are continuing through their general plan review, haven't fully adopted that, but part of that study has identified some expansion areas both internally and externally of their city. And so we have deferred the recommendation to say not recommend at this time to expand their sphere, but allow them to continue through that general plan process. They anticipate doing special studies or plan updates for those areas that would contemplate some further development. That would include more information that the commission can consider, and they could come in for a standalone application of a sphere amendment and annexation at that time. Looking at, this is the first site that's been removed from the district. It's seeking of that. The next site, we ended up finding a community gardens site for kind of the Isla Vista community, so we're using these as illustrative purposes for mapping. We are working with the county surveyor's office, who does all of our mapping for our documents, and we've asked for more precise locations of these locations. So those will be part of the public review draft. We'll have actual identifiable sites and parcels for that. But generally, this is sort of the community garden area here of what now becomes study area 1. Same with study area number 2, which is the West Campus housing location and a gardens that they have there. And lastly, the community garden project site, which is also on campus here. So we'll refine these maps as we get to the public review draft. Similar with Santa Rita Hills, so we're looking at the end of Sweeney Road that leads up to the district. And there's some little sways and curves as it leads into that district. We'll get that final mapping dialed in so that our sphere boundary aligns with the MOA road. But generally, it's this area that's outside of their district that leads into their district that they would not be able to construct or build because it's outside of their district service boundary. In addition to Santa Rita Hills, the service review will document the struggles that they have gone through and the government structure. They currently are an inactive district in that they only have 2 board members. A special legislation has been adopted for them to reduce their membership from 5 to 3. 3 members can be appointed by the Board of Supervisors. They had operated with 3 members up until 2021, and they lost their 3rd member, so they've been inactive since then. So they still need to get to be an active district, and they need to seek the authority to provide construction and maintenance of any roads that would be outside of their district, but within their sphere once we adjust that boundary. So this service review covers all of that and documents all of that for the Commission's understanding, and you'll see that in the public review draft for their chapter. Again, we're all pretty familiar with the Bailey Avenue property, the 2 sites just adjacent to the city of Lompoc. There's 148 acres that they're wanting to study. And here's the city of Santa Maria's boundary of expansion area. That includes these 11 parcels just on the exterior of their city limits on the north and east side of their boundary. Just a reminder, the sphere of influence is sort of looked at as sort of a planning tool. It's a 20-year kind of horizon projection of where services might be possible. It's not a land use approval tool. It doesn't grant them any permission to build or construct or allow development to occur just because you're in the sphere of influence. However, it is a precursor to any future annexations that might take place. And so we're anticipating in these areas that in this horizon 20-year time frame, there may be some services that are needed, and that's why we're looking at amending the sphere for these districts. And that service could either come through an annexation or reorganization of proposal or an out-of-agency service agreement. Under both scenarios, you would need to be in a sphere of influence to be able to grant them permission to provide that type of service. Because we are looking at 23 different agencies, the spectrum of the last sphere of influence update runs pretty deep, all the way back from 2006 to more current 2018 adjustments for all of these agencies. All of these will be current and now on track for our 5-year update. The service review component of this, so that's the sphere of influence and where we're going to adjust boundaries. Then there's the service review component. This is the informational piece that's required before you adopt a sphere of influence that documents the range and activities of a particular agency and their capabilities to do that so that you can be well informed as to whether or not amending the sphere of influence is an appropriate decision for you to make. It has to include the 7 legislative factors. All of those will be addressed in the service review and SOI public review draft that you will see. So to summarize, we are looking at adjusting spheres as a long-range planning tool only. We are hopeful to release a public review draft for a 30-day review period starting late October, November. We will finalize that public review draft and make all of these final recommendations that I'm presenting here about those spheres in that document. At the end of the day, we will be adopting only 12 spheres of influence for the 23 agencies reviewed. All of the remaining agencies will be updated following a subsequent service review that we're still evaluating because they provide an additional service that we haven't studied yet. So with that, that concludes our presentation. I know we have a number of public comment letters on this item that we forwarded to the commissioners that primarily deal with IVCSD and Santa Rita Hills CSD. And so if there are any specific questions from the commission after you've taken some public comment, staff would be happy to answer those.
Commissioners, Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hartman. I didn't see Laguna Sanitation on there. Is that one of the districts that's not being reviewed at this cycle?
We just completed Laguna County Sanitation
Okay.
last year in May.
All right. And then the other, getting back to that May discussion that we had, at that time I brought up the the issue of evaluating the city of Santa Maria's sphere of influence over the community of Orchid, which is served by a lot of other districts as well. And I think at that time I was told that that'd be more appropriate during the conversation that we'd have this fall. And so I didn't see that in the presentation and wanted to understand why it was not. And is there any action of this board today that we could make to further that discussion?
So we reached out to the city because it is their sphere of influence, and they chose to not evaluate the community of Orcutt in this study. We will be taking up the city again next year when we look at recreation and parks and open space and library services. All of the cities will be evaluated. We can look at that study area for the community of Orcutt then as well as a study area to determine appropriateness for that sphere of influence. Or the commission can direct that we include that as a study area under this cycle, in which case we will do our best to add that study area and still meet our November deadline so that we can adopt it in December and move forward. It may require, because it is a significant area, it may require more time. At any event, we will not be looking at the city of Santa Maria's sphere of influence until after 2025. When we adopt that final service review that looks at all of the services, we will take all 8 cities and look at their spheres of influence. So at any point, we can include the community of Orcutt into study up until that time, and at that time, we will be adopting the final formal sphere of influence for the city of Santa Maria. And we can make decisions about that then. So my recommendation would be, if you want Orcutt community included, we defer that to the next cycle so that we can move forward and we don't hold up the remainder 22 agencies.
And I don't want to hold up the other agencies, but that was the request that I made back in May. And so I am a little disappointed that it wasn't included here in the fall, because I think that was what I heard back from staff at that time, is that this would be the more appropriate time for that to happen. Again, I don't want to hold up the rest of the county. That's not my goal at all. But it seems that there, at some point, that discussion needs to happen. I have not pushed that any further because I was understanding that that would be a part of this cycle. So again, I'm disappointed. You know, the Orchid community has been a part of the sphere of influence for the city of Santa Maria since 1978, and with no meaningful efforts towards annexation, which is we saw on the that slide there that it's a 20-year look forward. Well, we're 45 years into that now, and even during the current general plan process that the mayor and the city is going through, they're not even considering Orchid as part of that process. So there's a lot of requests from constituents that we have in the Orchid area that are really interested in maybe moving forward with the CSD so they can have a little bit more self-governance and provide additional services. And there's many of us that believe that the sphere of influence that the city of Santa Maria has over the Orchid area kind of is a cloud over that process. And so I'm patiently trying to work through this process in the proper channels. And so that's where I'm trying to look for help from staff and maybe potentially the LAFCO board on doing that. If 2025 seems like a long way away, and there could be a lot of good work done between now and then. So I would, any response that you can give me to give me some direction on that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think as I indicated when we embarked on this study back in, you would raise the sphere of influence for the city of Santa Maria. That's when I expressed that it comes to the commission as to what we need to study. And certainly the commission has the discretion to direct staff to study. At that point, we did not get by the full board, and that's why I didn't see it. I did reach out to the city and asked some of their members if they were interested on their own, since they knew this was particularly to some of the commission on our commission. They did not choose to include that.
Okay, thank you. So I don't, I know we're still in discussion, but maybe have a public comment if Director Williams still on, I will be able to make that motion since I'm only an alternate this time. If not, or he is on, I would appreciate the other for making that motion to include evaluation work in that study area for because I think that motion didn't happen in March and for it to be included. That'd be a
And are we talking about the year or next year?
if you're looking for it. It sounds like we're pretty well baked, the instructionists on these other, as I understand from the exec director, it was included, is there wasn't a motion made back, so I think it's important for us to get a motion